Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you all today. Wow, we have 30 people together all so far, and I'm sure a few more who are going to join. So I decided that it would be really helpful to get anybody who is interested together to start talking about different programs you may have used with your students and with your faculties over this course of the remote learning, and just get a chance for people to share what they learned worked with their students and to be able to ask questions. Maybe you stumbled on something and you're trying to decide if you could do something better. So that's what this morning's about.
Mike, I'm in my
What I'd
meeting.
like
Come
to
on.
do is I'd like to start with prayer together. And what I'm going to do is share my screen with you. On the USCCB website, they had a prayer this week that is specifically, targeted at combating racism, and just a prayer for us to be sharing our humanity with everybody. I'd like to begin in prayer together. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Pray together. Mary, friend and mother to all, through your Son, God has found a way to unite himself to every human being, all to be one people, sisters and brothers to each other.
We ask
for your help
in calling
on
your Son,
seeking
seeking forgiveness for the
for the
times
when
when we have failed
to
to love and respect one another. We ask for your help in obtaining from your Son the grace we need to overcome the evil of racism
and
and
to
build
build
a just society.
We ask
We
for
ask
your
for
help
your help in following your Son, so that prejudice and animosity will no longer infect our minds or hearts, but will be replaced with
the
a
love
love that respects
the
the
dignity
dignity
of
of
each
each person.
person. Mother
Mother of the Church,
the
the Spirit of your Son, Jesus, warms our hearts. Pray for us.
Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
First of all, I wanted to thank some individuals who stepped up, because I'm a Google certified trainer, but I haven't been working in the conditions that you have during the pandemic. And so earlier this year, right before Easter break, I had asked some people, would you be interested in sharing some things that you've learned along the way, and act kind of as an expert to share what you've all learned works best in this remote learning situation. So some of these individuals said, I just feel comfortable listening, and others said, I'd be really happy to share. But even if your name's not on this list, if you have something that you'd like to share that worked really well with your students, please do that. And just unmute yourself, and you can tell us a little story, share what's worked well for you. And then as we run out of those stories, then what I'm going to do is open it up to questions and answers as well, because you made everything work for yourselves and your students as best as you could with almost no preparation time. So there's probably things that you wish you knew. Could I do something a little bit easier or better? So we're just focusing on Google Classroom. And this is going to kind of leak into areas probably like Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides. It might, end up having a bigger conversation, but we're going to spend this next hour however it supports you best. And then also it'll help me prepare for next year. What kind of things would help you as we prepare 2020, 2021? Who'd like to start by unmuting themselves and share a little bit about what you've learned that's worked well for you and your students using Google Classroom in this remote learning situation? Kathleen?
So I, being an art teacher and being at two different schools, did not use Google Classroom during this whole remote learning thing. I had an issue that I needed to keep both of my schools in the same exact order because I have 600 students. So in the end of all of this, I've done 6,000 art projects with them and had to get them all back. And when we started out, Google Classroom wasn't an option for me because one school was using it, one school was not, who had a remote learning page. So I opted not to use Google Classroom, and I didn't have an issue with that, but I really wanted to be on here because I wanted to know if there are any other art teachers that did use Google Classroom or did use other platforms that were successful to them.
Oh, fantastic.
And for them.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, for sharing that. Now, I didn't do any registration for this, so I don't know who's on the call, but is there an art teacher who is with us right now who'd like to share a little bit about what you used? And it could be something that's unrelated to Google, but just in the realm of art.
You know, I ended up posting everything on both my school's web pages, and I issued my projects every week. I issued them on Mondays. They were due on Fridays, and I had the students email them to me. And that just worked out very easily for me because I just sat there. I had both of my grade books with me. I graded my projects. I, sent them comments. And I didn't feel I needed to use Google Classroom because I didn't know what that was going to do for me or increase my success rate. And I had a very good success rate. Out of 600 students, I think there were 25 in the end between both schools that I had issues with. So I think that I was very successful. I don't know how I could have done it any better.
You know what, Kathleen? That's a good start. Go ahead, Tom.
I think one of the main benefits of using Google Classroom is really collecting all of the information in a much more organized manner. So rather than you have to go through all of those emails and then check to see, okay, does each student have it? You have to check it off with their list. You have to not know until you input it. If you have different classes, they could submit their work for each assignment. And just by looking at Google Classroom, I think it's easier to see who submitted things, who hasn't. There could be a running dialogue with feedback as well. So I think it helps with the organization, and you could be doing an incredible job with email. I think if you made the transition, you'd be right doing the same thing you're doing, but even I think it would make your life easier in the long run.
The reason I did not make the transition is because, when we started, one school was using a remote learning page for 2 weeks. So, and another school just do everything on your email. So by the time everybody combined to using one platform, and it wasn't just one platform, we were 3 and 4 weeks into this. And I just felt that I didn't want to confuse or stir the pot any more than it was confused.
And in many ways, Kathleen, that makes a lot of sense. And what I'm hoping is that as you listen to other people speak today, you might start to get a glimpse of what Tom's talking about, that,
Oh, absolutely.
You're right. Yeah. So I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah. And I wanted to say one thing also, Kathleen, I completely relate to you because we have essentially like an upper school and a lower school. And when we started this off, our entire upper school was on Google Classroom and our lower school was not. And it was a challenge because, as you said, like all of our specialists had to figure out the best way to do things. And, some classroom teachers had consistency, but it was harder for them. Our plan next year is to have all of our teachers in our whole school on Google Classroom, but it is such a big challenge when there isn't consistency. And I think one of the big things moving forward, and the reason why we have a lot of our staff here today, is because if there's going to be online learning regularly, I think consistency is such an important.
Absolutely.
Right. And Donna, you had your hand up. Would you like to share with us?
Let's see. Hi.
Okay, go ahead, Donna.
I'm happy to join you this morning.
It's so good to see you.
Because I've been teaching, but we started in the beginning with Google Classroom, and like the teacher that just spoke, we were using it with most of the middle school classes, but we had set it up right before distance learning started for all of the grades, and it worked. I mean, it was difficult for the parents to navigate with it too, with the younger grades, But the greatest thing that we liked about Google Classroom was when you did an assignment that they could complete, you could make a copy for each student. So you could post that one assignment and you can select the button, make copy for each student, and each student got their own copy that they can edit and they can submit. So that's really a helpful tool. And also creating Google Forms right within a Google Classroom assignment. We found that very helpful too for quizzes and tests.
Thank you, Donna. And I have Mr. Underwood. There we go.
I just wanted to add my voice to the chorus that like when we started this, I was just posting stuff to our website and it was a mess. And then after I got the third grade up on Google Classroom, which they didn't have before, and I got them up on it, and it made the whole process like so much easier. And I'm still a novice at it. Like the forms thing still kind of baffles me, but it made assigning work and getting work back and knowing I got it back and grading it like so much easier. To say, yeah. So just in support of like, it's definitely the thing to use.
Thank you so much. Yeah, if your school is a Google Suite school, it could be a really good thing to explore for yourself. And your tech integration specialist is definitely a person who can point you to some materials. What I thought I'd share when, and I'm sorry, Mr. Underwood, what's your first name?
Oh, Lou, sorry.
It's okay, Lou. I just, I can keep calling you Mr. Underwood, but I figured that was for the students. Okay, Lou, thanks. But one of the things that I thought I would share is if you're a teacher who's really new to Google Classroom, I'm sharing my screen, and one of the things that is really helpful within Google Classroom is you can create something called topics. And when you have topics, it helps organize the way that the students understand what's due. So some teachers, if you're a really lower grade student, what you'll see teachers do is maybe they'll have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or the days of the week. So it might be, June 2nd to June 5th. Or the topic could be something like spelling, math, and so on. So using the topics when you create an assignment, or if you create a material, I could say that this week your assignment is to draw a picture of one of the draw a picture from spelling list. And on the side here, it says, what's the topic? So you could create a topic called spelling, or you could create a topic June 5th to 12th. And then when you assign that, everything that has to do with spelling, or in this case, anything that was for June 5th through 12th, comes under one list. So it can be a really nice way to organize your work. And this is by classroom. So if you had other classrooms, each classroom could have its own set of topics. And I don't know if I have it in my pretend class here. Yeah, I did. So here's where, again, I was doing some little supports. Additionally, it could be very helpful for you to have a topic that's called important, or something that's called, 2020, 2021. So that way, if you start the school year off, your students, instead of having those handouts from you that get lost in 2 weeks and you're always photocopying, rehandling, or looking to re-email, those important pieces can be in its own topic. So that's another good way to use Google Classroom. Okay, so what are some other lessons that you may have learned that really helped you? Something like topics, or something like how you chose to use materials versus assignments versus something else. Who'd like to share a little bit more with us about things you learned that really helped your students stay organized? Or how maybe you helped parents understand how to support their students?
I had to make a video teaching parents how to play the recorder.
Oh, tell
I got multiple emails from parents saying, how can I possibly help my child play the recorder when I don't know how to play the recorder myself? So I had to almost make for every lesson another lesson for parents, teaching them how to play the recorder.
how interesting. So you have your own, I guess, did you do it as a YouTube channel?
I kind of just made videos that we uploaded on our teacher website, but I also had a YouTube channel that I worked with together, and it was just it was funny. It was just teaching them all over again, but just like using adult words instead of like child words.
And I would have definitely been a parent who needed those recorder lessons, I'm telling you right now.
They didn't sound much better.
No?
No, they didn't sound much better at all.
That's great. And you know, as Jose is talking about, one of the other benefits of the Google environment is that when you use Google Suite, it allows you to have unlimited storage space. And it's fantastic to be able to upload your videos into a situation like Google Drive because you can choose how it's shared. Now in YouTube, you can create a channel and have it unlisted so that only people who know about the link can use it. But if you're recording especially lessons where students are involved, recording those videos and then uploading it to your Google Drive, you then have a file that you can share in Google Classroom. So that's great. And we found that worked a lot better with the parents getting the kids to understand the recorder, Jose?
Less questions.
Less questions.
Less
Good.
questions. And it seemed like after a couple of weeks, either they got the hang of it or they just accepted the fact that they'll never learn how to play it and they'll just let their kid learn how to play it.
And you know what? Sometimes that's a good answer. Thanks, Jose. And I did want to mention too, Judy Salsano was one of the teachers who offered to join us, and she's joined us now too. So Judy, thank you so much. Let's see, Leslie, what would you like to share with us?
I teach with Donna over at OLV, and I teach math. I can only speak for that subject, but I found it extremely challenging to teach new concepts just on Zooming. So I purchased a whiteboard because I felt that that was easier to have the whiteboard here, like as though I were in school teaching a lesson. I also videotaped myself introducing the lesson, so they received it before we Zoomed. And instead of doing 2 lessons a week, I stuck to 1 lesson a week. I got permission from the principal to allow the kids, and they were very respectful, to FaceTime me on their phone if after the Zooming and during the week they wanted like additional help one-on-one. Because a lot of the concepts, like the recorder, the parents are not familiar with some of these algebra concepts and so forth. And so it became a bit challenging. So after the first 2 weeks of nearly having a breakdown over this, I got the whiteboard and it seemed to work out much better.
Oh, Leslie, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, that's the beauty of the world that we live in. You don't have to be all digital. Sometimes a whiteboard is the best answer. How did you record your videos?
I put my phone up, you know, and then I had the whiteboard here and I explained the lesson. In addition to that, which I've been doing at school, I found YouTube videos that introduced the lesson. This way they would have it all week. So if it was on, you know, graphing inequalities, for example, I found a video on it, or I would do it. And this way, before we actually Zoomed, they would have that lesson. Hopefully they looked at it. I certainly suggested that they look at it before we did, you know, before we Zoomed.
Right. No, that's a really great way to do that. And, you know, it makes it so much easier for all of us having cell phones, because I can imagine 10 years ago, so many more people would have struggled, and the cell phone has that built-in video. Where did you host your videos? Were they just stored up in Google Drive?
Yes, my friend has suggested that I do that like you just said. So now it's there, and should this ever happen again, they're there.
And even if it doesn't happen again, now you have a set of recorded tutorials.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And that's one of the benefits too of having had to do this for all the teachers, is that you now have a whole new tool set that you can call on. And it's forced on you, but now you have it.
And it's very true, because up until this point, I can only speak for myself, there wasn't a need for me to use Google Classroom. I never used that or put homework. My homework was usually workbook. We did like videos. I used my smartboard in class. We did the lesson together, the notes together. So I never really had a reason to use Google Classroom. So I had to learn all that. And Mike often showed me how to set up, like you were just saying, the different categories. So I have the Zoom category, projects, and so forth.
Great. Jennifer, if you'd like to unmute yourself and share.
Sure, thank you. One thing that I found that was very efficient in Classroom is that you can schedule all of your work ahead of time to post at a specific time.
Right.
Well, not only was that efficient, but it also helped with, if you had students coming in at different blocks of time, you could schedule morning work at 7 a.m. You can schedule work that's only specific for an afternoon crew at 2 p.m. So Classroom, it was very efficient, very practical. It took the strain, at least, of trying to remember all of the moving parts that needed to appear.
I so appreciate that, Jennifer, because you're right. You're juggling, even if whether you're a self-contained classroom or whether you're a special and teaching every grade, trying to wrap your mind around what comes first, second, and third is so different digitally. And just so that we can all take a look at this, I'm going to share my screen again and switch back over to my Google Classroom, just in case people haven't seen this before. When you go to that Create button, an assignment is something where you want to have something turned back to you, whereas a material is something you just want somebody to look at. So if I just wanted to provide somebody with a document, I could create a Google Doc. I could add something from my Google Drive. I could upload a file. And so let's just do a quick anything. And then I'm going to upload that. And once I do that, here under Post, you could schedule this. And it's grayed out right now because I didn't add a title and the other information. So let's do that real quick for 9 a.m. class. So now I can schedule this to be distributed at, let's say, 8:45 a.m. and then whatever day of the week. So this could be Monday. So if you're doing work in the evening or on the weekend, it's not going to post the instant that you put it together. It'll pop up in the students' classwork at 8:45 a.m. on June 15th. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at scheduling something, and you'll notice up here in gray, the title of this is for 9 a.m. class. It's scheduled for June 15th at 8:45. And I'm going to click these triple dots. I forgot to put my topic, so I'm going to edit that. And I'm going to put this under a new topic called, let's say, math class, if that I was self-contained, so that at math class for the 9 a.m. class at 8:45, and that's probably a crummy title. So let's say subtraction. And there you go. So I really appreciate you sharing how that can work. Okay, and now Peggy, you had something you'd like to share with us.
Yes, hi, I'm from Academy of Our Lady in Glen Rock. And when Leslie was talking about the dry erase board, our 3rd and 4th grade math teacher used the whiteboard that comes with Zoom. And she shared that. And she had a lot of success with that.
Thank you, Peggy. And yes, sometimes those whiteboards, the digital whiteboards, can be really successful depending on what you're doing. So with a math teacher, I could see, Leslie, how just a marker could be so much easier when you're trying to work on algebra concepts. I've heard of other teachers who ended up purchasing digital Wacom boards that plug in, and so you can write on this digital surface, and then it could write on the Zoom board or the Google Meet Jamboard. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Thanks, Peggy.
And I got,
Go right ahead.
Hey, Tom.
one thing I wanted to recommend, I was teaching Algebra 1, and we were doing quadratic equations and factoring. So I was teaching a topic that was challenging for 8th graders, and I really wanted to know if they understood it. Now, I think one of the big challenges here is, especially with work at home, you never know, is it the kids doing it on their own? Do they have help? Are they getting it from others? Even when you tell them, I'm not going to grade your homework based on how correct your answer is, they still don't technically believe that, and they're still going to make sure that they have the right answer there because they're terrified of having a wrong answer. What I did with my assignments is I would post on every assignment, I would post my problem set, but then a quick survey too. And the survey would say, like 3 questions or 4. How long did it take you to do today's work? Was it between 0 to 30 minutes, 30 to 60 or more? How did you feel about this topic overall? Between 0 to 10, they could click. Which problems gave you the most trouble? Explain. And then, is there anything else you'd want me to know? They had no problems being honest there because there was no penalty there. But I feel they don't feel confident to not give the correct work. So I thought for like a formative assessment, I could very quickly, through setting up a Google form, see which problems my students didn't understand, which topics gave them the most trouble. And for educators that don't have the time to check every single problem of every single assignment, I thought this was an excellent way for teachers to really see what topics do they understand and what do they not, because the kids do a great job of actually being honest there.
Tom, would you just post that as an assignment, or is there a different function that would be used in Google Classroom for that?
In Google Classroom, you can post multiple attachments to your assignment. So when I would post my homework as an assignment, the what's it called? The survey is also right there next to it.
So you were using a Google form then?
Yeah, and a quick one that was only like 4 questions.
And Anne, I was going to ask, would you be able to flip back to your demo and just show teachers, because you did a great job showing how to post, but how they collect work from the students?
Sure. So that's just a smidge difficult because I it's hard to see, but let me do the best I can. So if I come here to Google and let's see if I can find anything. I might have something with my tech integrators where somebody's turned something in. When I go to classwork, I can take a look at assignments. There's something. Let's see what it is. I have no idea what it is. So under here, I have my webinar. I just saw some, okay, turned in. So this person had turned in an assignment, and I can go ahead, I clicked on turned in, I went to the triple dots, I want to view that submission. And so in this case, the person turned in a slide, and now I'm able to view that work. So this could be a Google Doc, it could be something that was uploaded by the student. You notice over at the side, I can add a private comment to the student. Would you look again at information about the process and send me to explain more. And then I can post that. If I want to, I can return just this submission, or if I've looked at several, I can return multiple submissions. So I'm going to return that submission, and the student will be notified and can check any grade that I left. So I'm going to go ahead and return. Does that help, Roseanne? Or did you have something else in mind? I'm just trying to think of other lessons learned and other things that we might be able to share with each other. We have about 20 minutes left, and I know that there's teachers who've been using it at a variety of grade levels. Lou, you had another thought that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, this is just a quick thing. I wanted to go back to how, the topic of scheduling. If you're posting stuff to two different classes, you have to schedule each individually. I found that out the hard way. So yes, it's awesome. But if you're going to do that, if you're running two classes or whatever, like you have to do it individually. That's all.
Oh, thank you so much for mentioning that, Lou, because a lot of people do have multiple sections. You might have social studies 6th, 7th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so you're going to have a Google Classroom for social studies 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. So if you schedule it once, it's not enough. You have to schedule it in each classroom. Thanks, Lou. And not Roseanne. Roseanne, did you have something?
Question for
Sure.
Lou. And Lou, because you're kind of our, and first of all, a shout out to Lou, because as you mentioned, he switched over midstream. I mean, we were already in the thick of it, and he decided that it was not going to work for him and for his students to not have Google Classroom. So he came to us and said, "Can you guys help me get set up?" And we were scrambling. A shout out to John Mason, who spent a lot of extra hours and time getting it up and running. So I can't say enough about the courage it took to kind of transform in the midst of this. But Lou, one of the questions that I have is, now that you've gone to Google Classroom, assuming, God willing, that we are back in school, do you still see this as a platform that you're going to want to use going forward, even if?
Oh yeah, definitely. Now that it's something that I mean, I'm still a novice at it. There's definitely like things that I don't quite understand, and I'll figure it out. I'll look at videos, whatever. But yeah, definitely going forward, even when we're back in the classroom, I see myself using it.
Great.
And Roseanne and Lou, that is one of the biggest hopes that I have, because we've been working in the Archdiocese for decades with technology, and specifically for the last 7 years with the technology integration specialists. But unless you have a reason to change your practice, it's just easy to keep sticking with
Doing
what
the
you
same
have.
thing. Right.
Right, Lou?
Oh yeah, I agree. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a veteran at this too. I've been doing it for like 15 years. Actually, I lost count how many years. But yeah, no, it's true. And this is like, the technology is it's been there for a while, but I just sort of hesitant to use it. And now I love it. Now, now that I've been thrown into it, it's great. So.
And the interesting thing is, I think you said 3rd grade is your class?
Yeah, 3rd grade.
Okay. So I know a lot of people struggle with the idea of having our 3rd and below students use Google Classroom, because they think maybe it's too hard or whatever. And I always found the 3rd graders were really psyched to use it, because it made them feel like big kids. Like
Definitely,
they felt like the high schoolers or something.
And kids today are savvy with technology, naturally. It's like by osmosis. They just know it.
And while that's true, the best part of you being an educator is at the 3rd grade and below, really the 3rd grade to 12th grade, the kids are a natural at technology, but they're not a natural at the emotional side of things.
Right.
So did you find yourself helping the students through norms of how
you mean how
bond or talk with one another digitally, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it was like digital classroom management. Basically what you're doing here, like the whole class was muted, and if someone had something to share, they would raise their hand. I mean, some kids got rammy because they're kids, but for the most part, it worked pretty well. Yeah.
And so that's what I want to also keep in mind as you're working with Google Classroom. You're teaching your content, but you're also teaching the students the little things. That was one thing I learned with the elementary teachers on Fridays. is how they had to teach those babies, they're, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, how to make sure that you're looking into the screen, because they don't realize that if they could see it from an angle, everybody's seeing the back of the wall and not their face. So thank you. Anton, I see you're unmuted. What could you share with us about the science world?
Yes, I was going to add to when you correct the papers and you make the personal comments, very helpful, especially when parents have a question about a grade. And when they say my child wasn't aware of this and that, and then when I tell them to go look at the work and the comments, then they say, oh yes, this is a 2-week on beg you for the completion of the assignment, and my child said no, it was just recent and I submitted on time, and so that helped. Also, what was very helpful is in the files you can look up, which I did a lot of videos, mini videos, cartoon type, that demonstrate or illustrate a concept, like a 2-3 minute. I would find them and then post them into the YouTube section, and they're able to watch that in addition to my own homemade video recordings. So it's very helpful.
Thank you. And I have to tell you all, I applaud every one of you who's on this call for every strategy you tried, for every hour that you spent. I don't think it ever got easy, but next year, like Anton's saying, you've built some materials that hopefully it'll help you next year, make it a little easier. You started learning how to use that video camera with a whiteboard behind you. So this year you were really like first-year teachers, fresh out of college, who had no support teacher to help you standing by your side. So, please know from the bottom of my heart, and Barbara Dolan, the acting superintendent, every assistant and associate superintendent, we are just awed by what you all did. And thank you for every lesson that you learned and for everything you're sharing with us right now. Roseanne?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and there's also a couple really practical reasons why we're going to be, we're just going, tiny tykes through 8th grade, pre-K, we're all going to transform over to Google Classroom this summer. And one of the issues that we had was for our grades pre-K to 2nd grade, they were posting their videos on our website. And a couple people expressed a little bit of discomfort with that, just because it's public, right? Anybody at all can go on there. And also, there's the issue of, we had one situation, to be quite honest, where a parent that was not paying tuition, they had withdrawn their child, was basically being able to take advantage of everything that we were offering. So we think in terms of security, we also felt that that's a really great reason to do it. Another great reason to transform to Google Classroom is kind of what you opened with, Anne, and that is just the ability to save it. Because my concern right now, we're in the process this week and next week, our teachers are that we're saving everything to their desktop or their computers. My fear is that these computers are just going to die of exhaustion, so what I've asked the teachers to do is to get everything into the cloud, to get everything saved into Google, and to clear out their machine so that their machines are not taxed. And I'm thinking that for the teachers grades 3 through 8 that were already doing Google Classroom, they don't have that issue. Everything has already been organized and cataloged and has been saved in the cloud. So those are just 2 really practical reasons. Obviously, I loved hearing the teachers share with instructionally how advantageous this is in terms of getting assignments out and collecting assignments and grading and giving comments. It's amazing what the capacity of what you can do. There's also a couple really practical reasons. I think the other thing is for the little ones, the parents have been asking me also for something that would be more accessible for them. So when you think about the little ones and are they going to be able to handle, the truth of the matter is, if they're a 3-year-old, they're not really going to be submitting work themselves anyway. So this would make it much easier for the parents to get work uploaded to you, and as they assist their children as well.
Right. And the thing is, you brought three things to mind. You got me a packed little bit of information there, Roseanne. The first is for those of you, and I like to share things that I hear about. So one thing that could be helpful is there's a book called Google Apps for Littles, and it's talking about pre-K through early elementary ways that you can use Google Apps with the littlest kids. And if we're lucky enough to be face-to-face, which I'm sure we will for certain portions of the year, at maybe the whole year, but for at least certain portions, when you're face-to-face, you'll be able to practice. But Google Apps for Littles is a really good book. Another thing that I wanted to share is I haven't played with it yet. I was talking to Google this week, just trying to learn about all of this data that we're creating. Google account is bottomless. You can store as much data as you wish, so you're not going to run out of space. But Google has something called Google Takeout, so takeout.google.com, and it allows you to download all kinds of stuff, but if you needed to save your Google Classroom data, I haven't played with it yet, so I can't tell you much more, but I just wanted to mention that. We're not talking about something called Seesaw right now, but Seesaw is a really nice app that I'll be talking about later in the week. Yeah, you could sign in with Google. So, you don't want to do too many things, but the nice thing about Seesaw is you can submit work really easy as a little kid on a cell phone with the Seesaw app. And so if they could sign in with their Google account, that might help. The Google app for Littles is a good book to just help you imagine what can be done. You can make slides, and you can put things on slides and let the students drag them around. So if you were trying to decide, between words that have a t sound and words that have a w sound, you could put a Google slide together and the kids can drag pictures to the W side and the T side. So there's so many ways that you could use Google with the little kids. Another thing that I think as Catholic educators, it's just nice to be able to remind yourself of things. So, when you're beginning class, to begin with prayer. And one way that I do that for myself is when I create my slides, I always start with a prayer. And, it's nice to be able to share just pieces of your Catholic identity from your schools. Your school has patron saints. Your schools have iconery around the school. So, it would be interesting to be able to take photos and include things like that in your Google Classroom, your Google Docs, really just to add that as well. So we have about 8 minutes left, and I wanted to know, does anybody have other, Mrs. Sullivan, you also had your hand raised. What would you like to share with us, or question?
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Just wanted to share a quick couple of things that I discovered as my first year being in tech integrator in the school and going into this as well. Our teachers did great, actually. It was scary at the beginning, but then at the end of the year, most of them are in Google Classroom, Zooming, Seesaw. We do have Seesaw for the little ones up to 3rd grade, and then 4th and through 8th, we have Google Classroom. We might keep the same model. We're looking, we're seeing what's going to work. But one of the things at the beginning is that I discovered, as I could make the transition easily myself to Google Classroom, I realized some of our teachers were not going to do that as easily. And sorry, it was hard to to train them at the same time as they had to go over there and quickly teach and everything else. So I had to respect what their comfort level was at that moment. And, even if it meant a little bit more work for me, I try to figure out some ways on how they could do it. And one of the things I did discover is that regardless of whether you use Google Classroom or not, or any other platform, Google Education Suite is going to be basic. Like one of the things that we're thinking of professional development is, regardless of what you use, some schools use Schoology, Canvas, and Edmodo, and whatever you use, you're going to, all of those integrate with Google apps like Slides and Sheets and Docs and everything else. So that's going to be like the bottom line. Like we just have to know how to get around and go around those and how to work with those, because once you know those, then you can just integrate those in the classroom remotely or whatever is necessary. One of the most used apps in Google that I found that our teachers were using and around, I think around the world, was Slides, because it just allows for so much, for a lot of things. So when I thought about how to help some of these teachers, and if you have possibly any teacher that their comfort level is not necessarily the greatest yet, I created some files I could share with them to help them organize work, but also to help put work for them and for the students. And it's by no means anything that's my original idea or anything. I just sort of adapted it to our school. I don't know if you will allow me to share a couple of the screen for.
Oh, absolutely. You can take over the screen and share anything that you'd like to. Yeah. I mean, this is the best part of getting together, is learning with each other what works.
So one of the first ones that I created is for a couple of special teachers that we had that, like Kathleen was saying, we were not, and I'm one of them, we were not necessarily into Google Classroom right away. I created a file in Slides that will help them organize their work. And I, as an integration, as a specialist, I put that in the website, in their own page, in the school's website. So all they had to do is really come here to the same file every week and organize their work. And as we all know, they get updated as you change it. You don't have to do anything else. So once it was on their school page for their own subject, this would be there for parents or students to see what the assignments would be for that week. And another one I created, which was sort of like an interactive, choice board. And like I said, this is not my original idea. There's so many of them out there. I just sort of personalized it for ourselves. But this one, would allow the teacher to sort of post different, it could be a choice board, or it could be your school, the week for, worth of assignments. And you can type Monday here and Tuesday here. And then when you type, it takes you to the slide. And then you can just, explain what assignment you have for that day, or, what you want them to do. So this, even if a teacher wasn't ready to jump into Google Classroom, if they were just comfortable coming here and typing and updating these files, and then I would do the rest of, to try to link that over to their school's website, or we created also an app. So just to the app itself under their section, then it would be easily accessible for parents or
students and for themselves, just to get familiar with one format, one file, and then just be able to update that. So it kind of worked. You know, a couple of teachers that use it. So we found that worked for some of our teachers that were not necessarily very comfortable with Google Classroom or couldn't get into Google Classroom right away.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Anna, because it reminded me of two things. The first is a lot of principals and tech integration specialists, and it looks like this is what you did, will create a Google Classroom for all the teachers in the school.
Yeah, I had that.
Okay, and so that, you know, for those of you who work with others as a department chair or a principal, assistant principal, tech integration specialist, what Anna did can be really helpful for your school as a team, because the Google Classroom can now act as the stream where teachers can share just with everybody what's going on. The classroom itself, you can create slide templates that everybody in the school can share. And then the other thing that Anna shared with you, if you haven't seen this idea of choice boards, a lot of times as teachers, when we're in the classroom, we tend to give the same assignment to everybody. And I think in the Archdiocese as a whole, we've been getting much better at differentiating and understanding that it doesn't mean that you do 3 fewer problems. It means that you could do something totally different that shows that you're mastery. And so this idea of choice boards, if you, you know, if you Google the word Google Classroom choice boards or Google Slides choice boards, you'll, like Anna said, there are so many ideas out there. You could even Google, you know, choice boards first grade or choice boards middle school science, and it will give you some really great ideas over the summer. So thank you so much for sharing that, Anna. That was, like Roseanne, another package full of ideas in there.
Sorry.
No, sorry. This is, I like I said at the beginning, I learn more from you because you're all out there for the last 12 weeks, just doing the best you can. And the best that you've all done exceeded anybody's expectations of what we could do and where we could be. So thank you. Donna, I had seen that you unmuted yourself. I don't know if you wanted to share something as we sort of head on out at 10 o'clock.
No, that was very helpful what Ms. Sullivan posted. And just to say that we're planning on putting together packets now for the summer for the new school year, parent training for Google Classroom for the students for, you know, early childhood to 3rd grade even. And also having our, trying to find a virtual platform where the teachers and I can do some professional development in the summer to be more trained in the Google apps properly and fully. So we're looking into maybe not Google certification so much, but so I don't know if you were aware of anything offering that. I reached out to the place in Paramus that usually does the tech training, and they're getting back to me. But if you have any ideas, that would be helpful.
Right. So as far as learning to use Google better, there's an array of choices out there. So like Donna said, if you're interested in face-to-face learning, Bergen County especially has the Bergen County Cooperative, where the public school, I believe, has you know, training that's available for non-publics as well. There's companies like Eduscape and EdTech Team in New Jersey who do a lot of training. BER tends to be very expensive, but with the CARES Act, principals might be able to use BER and get, I think they're a global group, but they're certainly in the United States. And then, you know, just some other people who do different things. I'm just going to see if I can come here. I started working through, to me, it was a really good set of lessons. It's Infused Classroom. If you Google it, they have a Chromebook Infused Classroom, which basically it works you through, and I don't know, I was enrolled in it, maybe I ran out of time on it, but it had some amazing topics. I learned a lot. So that's the Infused Classroom, and it wasn't that expensive. I think it was maybe $99, and it looks like right now they're having 50% off, which is I think what I ended up doing, and I think it was $99. So Holly Clark is the person who's running them, but she brought in a lot of people from around the world who have a lot of knowledge. This name here, Casey Bell, I haven't really seen her work, but she has something called Shake Up Learning. And Shake Up Learning also has a lot of Google materials, Google Learning. And then as Donna was mentioning, you don't have to pay any money. Google, if you do Google Certified Educator, they have free materials, and you can learn about using Google tools in Educator Level 1. Educator Level 2 is more about pedagogy, and then Certified Trainer certifies you to train, you know, officially, but you don't need that. But each of these you can pay $10 and then get an official form that you're a Level 1 certified educator, $25 for a Level 2 certified educator. But again, you don't need to do the certification. Right. So those are a couple ideas, and
thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, always reach out to me, Donna, and we can talk more, but those are just in general for anybody in the Archdiocese.
Great.
On the screen also, I'm just showing a couple of links that you may or may not know exist. So tinyurl.com/Arcan YouTube. Arcan is the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Newark. I keep videos of different remote learning sessions that I've recorded. A lot of you couldn't attend because you were working with your students. So every Thursday I was having conversations with teachers and tech directors. On Fridays, Gloria Castucci and I work with early childhood. I also have 3 Facebook groups.